Well, what we did tonight, I had mentioned, I think last week, that we were going to have the meditation hall open we'd open it up an hour and 15 minutes before the class would actually start, and we'd have an hour of silent meditation in the meditation hall. And then at 1:45, we just open the doors, and then, everybody can come in and socialize and all that, or, you can also hang out there up until that time. But that worked out well today. I think I see another person coming. So that worked out well today, and I think we'll continue to try that, make that offer to allow people to come in for just some silent, self-guided meditation. Thanks, Joni. Appreciate that.
You mean like tonight?
Before meditation.
Yeah, we did that tonight.
So you were open at 6?
We were open at 5:45.
Okay.
And then so from 5:45 to 6:45 it was open meditation. So we were just sitting in here silently meditating. And then at 6:45, then
you open the door.
Yep, open the door. Everybody comes in, and
Then they meditate another half hour?
well, we'll do our meditation pretty quick. But some people like to do both. So, which I like to do.
Well, you're talking about a silent and then a guided.
Right. Yep. Silent, guided. Perfect. She's got it. So yeah, you can't meditate too much. That's for sure. At least I've not found that to be the case. So sounds like we have one more person. Hello there.
Hi, I'm sorry.
No problem. Welcome. I'm Ken. I'm the teacher.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I'm Sandy.
Sandy, welcome. Did we speak
Hi,
on the
Sandy.
phone? I think we maybe
No.
No?
I was waiting for you to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you'd already be here because I was running late.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, so everybody can get as comfortable as possible. We use bolsters under our feet, or rolled up yoga mats, or we have yoga blocks.
Thanks.
There's blankets, so pretty much everything to make you comfortable, hopefully.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good thing.
Do you need
It's in the
a
closet.
roll?
I don't,
It's in the
I'm gonna
closet.
work on this thing.
You're gonna be on that thing.
Unless somebody uses it, needs it.
No, we're good.
Well, we'll kick things off with just our purification ritual. So there's a phrase in one of the suttas that says, "That which the mind frequently dwells upon and thinks about will become the inclination of the mind." So I find that to be really true. The things that I think about repeatedly over and over, my mind starts to kind of move into that as an inclination. So that's part of the reason we do this base of mental purity practice at the beginning of our meditation session. A base of mental purity is a base of wholesome intention. So one of the things we do when we're looking for mental purity is we try and identify what are called the 3 taints in the practice. And those are greed, anger, and delusion. And we can cultivate generosity, virtue, and mindfulness as a way of counteracting those 3 taints of greed, anger, and delusion. So with that in mind, I just invite everyone to close your eyes for a moment. And it's a great opportunity to just let go of whatever baggage you're carrying. Everyone comes in after having a busy day, and everyone's got a different story of what they went through and how they got here, but we've all arrived at this place. So this is the right place and the right time, and it is the right people. So here we are, aware, letting go of any of those taints of greed, anger, and delusion. And again, welcoming in generosity, virtue or goodwill, and mindfulness, the clarity of mindfulness that makes wisdom possible. So with that, I'll sound the bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. All right. Well, welcome everyone. So what we will do, for those of you who are new to the group tonight, we begin with a guided meditation practice, and that takes usually 25 to 30 minutes to do that. And since it's guided, there's nothing you need to know how to do in advance. We just take you through the whole thing. And so really probably the first thing to think about is just a way to be comfortable during that meditation period. And so if everyone wants to start getting into their whatever their meditation posture is going to be, and you will see that we have people who will lay down on the floor on a yoga mat or just on the wood floor like Don does. We have people like Elaine and Steve who use these size benches. People sitting on cushions, people sitting on chairs, whatever is comfortable for you is the right way to do it. And there are, on this chair behind Joni, there's blankets, so if anybody feels a little chilly, you're welcome to grab a blanket, wrap yourself up. Did that tonight myself. So once we find a position that we're going to use for our meditation practice, the thing to remember is that sometimes, especially for newer folks, you might meditate for a few minutes in that position and start to feel some discomfort. And so it's okay to move. Don't feel like you have to stay perfectly still the whole time. People will move. You know, if your leg is falling asleep or you feel some discomfort or something, it's perfectly fine to adjust and change your posture so that you can be comfortable. So don't have any worries about doing that. Regarding the basics of our meditation posture, you know, of course I sit on the floor. I'm used to it. But sitting with the legs crossed. Some of you do it on chairs, which is great too. But sitting with the legs crossed, we might just have our hands folded in our laps. Usually I'll place the left hand palm up, right hand in the left hand, palm up. And that for me is a comfortable way to do it. You put your hands on your knees, on your lap, anywhere you'd like to. We try and sit in a way that we have our backs straight, nice and vertical, but not stiff, not rigid. So we just kind of, you might pivot around, find a little point of balance where it just kind of optimally balanced and using the least amount of muscle tension necessary to maintain your posture. And then you may find it comfortable to tilt your head forward just slightly, kind of tuck the chin in a little bit. And that'll take some tension off the back of the neck. So you can do that if it's comfortable. You also want to have a degree of symmetry throughout the body so that you're supporting your weight pretty much equally on both sides, not using one side more than another. So we try and balance out the body with symmetry. And then we close our eyes as we meditate. And the reason for that is just to eliminate visual distractions. If we're looking around, the things that we see tend to be things that we think about, and then the mind starts wandering. So we find that we can create a great deal of quiet in the mind just by closing our eyes. And then, as far as the breath is concerned, if you're able to breathe through your nose, that's great, very helpful. Breathe through your mouth if you need to, but breathing through your nose is beneficial. And just let the breath be completely natural. We don't manipulate it in any way in this meditation. We just let it come and go as it wants to. So with all of those basics covered, I'm going to sound the bell to begin the meditation. As the bell goes into silence, I'll start to guide us. And I'll begin that right now. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let the silence be a warm invitation to turn your senses inward. We can let go of the habit of the mind, which is to be usually projected outward, interacting with the outside world. Instead, just take a moment to turn your senses inward. Become aware of what it feels like to just be sitting or laying in your own body. There's a feeling of presence. Just let yourself get in touch with that feeling of presence, turning the senses inward. And as you observe that feeling of presence, you might notice that there is a natural stability to the body. That the body, when allowed to do so, will gravitate towards peacefulness and calm. So we're letting that happen, turning the awareness inward, being present in the body. And then, with this sense of presence established, let's bring our awareness up to the top part of our heads and the area of the scalp. And for a few moments, we'll just begin to observe the sensations that we feel in the scalp. Anywhere in the scalp. So sensations, we're not looking for anything magical here, just normal physical sensations. And they might be temperature sensations. It may feel warm or cool to you in the room. Sometimes when the air is circulating, you might feel that air movement on your scalp or on your hair. So sometimes that air motion. Other times you might feel sensations on the surface of the skin. And these could be things like tickles or itches or pulsations. So we're just paying attention, being aware of the sensations in the scalp. And there's no expectations here, there's no requirements. There's nothing you need to feel, nothing you shouldn't feel. It's just whatever your experience is in this moment. And as you observe, we also maintain a degree of objectivity with the awareness. We're not judging either. We're not saying this is a good sensation or a bad sensation, or I wish I'd feel this. We're just observing whatever is true in this present moment. And as we do that, we notice that sensations have a tendency to arise and pass away. That no sensation is permanent. They come, they last for a few moments, and then they dissolve away. They fade away. Other times they'll come up, last for a moment, start to change into something else. So we're just observing, remaining attentive and objective. And now, all throughout your scalp, allow any tension to leave the scalp. Let it leave the body. Just becoming aware of the entire scalp, allow all tension to go. And it's just a releasing, just a letting go. There's no effort required, simply a recognition and a release. And after we let that tension go, we continue to observe our sensations, continuing to observe within the area of the scalp. And then from the scalp, we can begin to move our awareness downward. And so now we'll move down into the forehead. Also, let the awareness flow into the temples. Let it continue downward through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And now in these four parts of the body, again, just bring awareness to bear. Notice any physical sensations, temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. You are objective, you are attentive, and let go of any tension in these areas. If your brow is furrowed, which is true for many of us, or if there's tightness in the temples, maybe the eyebrows are raised, or maybe you're squinting a little bit, just let all that tension go. Again, there's no effort required, it's just recognition and release. Very simple process. And as you let go, just begin to feel the increased peacefulness that starts to take over in your body, in the areas as we move through. So now from the temples, you can begin to guide your awareness downward towards your ears, and then focus the awareness on the ears themselves. I'll start to name off some parts of the body, and you can just move your awareness to them and through them, and just go through the simple process of observing, of releasing tension, and then just remaining aware, continuing to observe in this objective and attentive way. So from the ears, we move the awareness forward through the cheekbones and into the face. And from the eyes, we move the awareness downward. Feel it moving down through the nose. It moves down through the lips and mouth and chin. Aware of all of the different sensations, temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. And then we're simultaneously releasing tension. Check in with your jaws, see if your teeth are clenched at all, and release that. Sometimes the lips are pursed or there's tightness somewhere in the muscles of the face. Just let that all go. Let it leave the body. Again, it's effortless, only requiring a recognition and a release. So we're setting that tension free. We're not pushing it away with any type of aversion. We're just letting it go. And then from the chin, you can start to guide your awareness downward. Feel it moving down into your throat. And observe there, letting the awareness flow to the sides of the neck, and then letting it move around to the back of the neck. As you work with this practice for a few minutes, you may start to feel the flow of awareness. There's kind of a warm, soothing flow as you guide the awareness from part to part. So let go of tension anywhere in the neck. Some of us hold it in the throat. We let go. Some of us hold it in the back or the sides of the neck. So we're letting go of tension, aware of those sensations. And then from the neck, we can begin to guide the awareness down into the shoulders. And let it spread out throughout the shoulders, all the way across. Observing those sensations, contact. Maybe not air movement, but sensations on the surface of the skin here. You might notice the feeling of contact between your shoulders and the chair or the floor. Or sometimes just a feeling of contact between your skin and your clothing. As you breathe, there's a very subtle movement of the body, and you might notice those sensations of contact. And then we allow the shoulders to drop. If they're at all shrugged, we just let that go. Let the shoulders rest completely. Again, becoming aware of the increase in stability in our own bodies, the overall peacefulness. And then from the shoulders, we can start to guide our awareness downward into our upper arms. And we observe the different parts. Each part of the upper arm has slightly different sensations. So we observe the biceps. And then we rotate inward, observing the inside surface of the upper arms. And we rotate to the back part of the upper arms, the triceps, observing here. Again, just aware of sensations and automatically letting go of tension. Becomes an automatic process. Awareness includes releasing tension, remaining aware, and then moving the awareness to the outside surface of the upper arms, from the shoulders all the way down to the elbows. Aware and letting go. And then feel the flow of awareness moving down through the elbow joints. Observe, follow that awareness as it flows down through your forearms. Feel it moving down further through your wrists. Feel it moving through the wrists into the hands. And then with the awareness in the hands, start to look at the different parts, the heels of the hands and the sensations there, the palms. Sometimes there's perspiration or a sensation of moisture, an awareness of moisture in the hands. Moving to the top surface of the hands, observing sensations here. Moving into the thumbs and fingers, observing and letting any tension go. Sometimes we find tension in the hands. We kind of clutch the hands or hold our fists kind of balled up. So let the hands relax, let the fingers relax, and then move your awareness down into the fingernails. And just spend a few moments there, just observing, being curious. What are the sensations in the fingernails? Are there any sensations in the fingernails? And so we just observe. And sometimes, focusing on these small areas, we will notice that there are very subtle sensations, very faint, but sometimes just a feeling of pulsation or energy. So we observe. And then from the fingernails, let's move our awareness up to the top of the chest. So we're making a bit of a move here. We try to maintain a continuity of awareness as we move. We bring our awareness to the collarbones. Spread the awareness across the collarbones, and then let it start to move downward through the chest, inch by inch. Really being attentively aware as we move to some of these larger surfaces on the body. It can be easy to get lost, to let go of the attentiveness of awareness. So remain aware and focused. Remain aware as the awareness flows down all the way to the base of the sternum. And you're releasing tension as you go. And from the sternum, then you let the awareness flow outward through the rib cage. Observing and letting go. Remaining aware. Becoming aware of the peacefulness and the stability in the center of your own being. And then we can bring our awareness up into our underarms and observe as it starts to move down slowly, inch by inch, down through the sides of your body, all the way to your waist. And then once awareness is in your waist, you can bring it forward into your belly. And just start to observe the belly, the movement of the belly. It rises and falls with the breath. And sometimes there's a feeling of expansion and contraction as it fills and empties. Sometimes there is a feeling of contact between the skin of your belly and your clothing. So you're aware of all of these sensations, just objective. And you let the tension go in the belly, let it be free, let it be relaxed. I like to imagine a baby's tummy or a toddler's tummy, how they walk around and they just let their belly hang out. We can do the same thing with our bellies, just let them be free. And then from the belly we'll move again, this time around to the upper back. So again, just try to maintain that continuity of awareness as we move. Sometimes it helps to be aware of the intention to move, and then the movement of awareness itself, the arrival of awareness at the destination point, and then the establishment of awareness there, taking in the sensations in the upper part of the back. So from the base of the neck down through the shoulder blades, observing, again, remaining objective and letting go. And then we let the awareness flow down a little further into the middle part of the back, the middle third. Again, aware of the sensations. Might be sensations of contact if you're laying down or leaning against a chair. You're letting the tension go. And letting the awareness flow down further into the lower part of the back. Aware and observing with objectivity, and letting go of tension. Sometimes as we move through parts of the body, the back is one that is often the case where we notice sensations that are a little bit unpleasant, or sensations that are somewhat difficult. There might be some discomfort or some pain, some fatigue in the back, and we find it hard to be objective when we discover pain or unpleasant sensations, because we don't like them, and so there's a tendency to push against them. There's a tendency to resist them and dislike them, and to develop aversion toward them. And what we discover is when this happens, we increase the tension around those areas, and it tends to intensify the discomfort rather than to relieve it in any way. So what we find in the practice is that knowing these sensations are going to be here either way, that if we just allow them all the space they need to be as they are, that we don't need to push them out or will them away or do anything with them other than just let them be as they are. And we have all the spaciousness in our consciousness to allow that to happen. Just let the sensations be as they are. Don't generate aversion or ill will or disliking. Just let it be. And then with this peacefulness that you establish, you can start to let go of some of the tension around these difficult areas. Start to feel yourself becoming more free and relaxed. So this is a wonderful way to practice. You can do this anywhere in the body where you discover pain or discomfort. But now from the lower back, we'll move our awareness downward. And we'll feel it moving through the sit bones. In the sit bones, you might notice the feeling of contact or bearing weight. You move the awareness further, feeling it moving through the hips. And feel it moving throughout the pelvis, aware of all of these sensations. And just letting go of tension. And then we can start to guide the awareness down into the thighs. And we'll start with the top or the uppermost surface of the thighs. From the hips all the way down to the knees, we observe the sensations. Let the tension go, let the muscles relax. And then we can rotate the awareness outward to the outside facing surface of the thighs. Aware and letting go, and then rotating awareness downward to the underside of the thighs. And here, Depending on how you're sitting or laying, you may notice contact again, bearing weight. And then we move to the inside surface of the thighs, aware and releasing. And now from the thighs, you can begin to move your awareness down through your knees. Feel it flowing. There's a warm flow of awareness through the knees as it moves. Feel it moving through the knees, down into the calves. Feel that awareness spreading through the calves and moving forward into the shins. Just filling the lower legs with awareness of sensation. Moving downward further, feeling awareness entering the ankles. Aware of sensations and letting go. And then from the ankles, we can guide the awareness down into the feet. And with awareness in the feet, noticing the heels, the sensations there, the soles, the balls of the feet. Maybe there's a sensation of moisture, perspiration in the feet. And then rotating awareness to the top surface of the feet. Again, just aware and letting go. Objective, yet attentive. Interested in the experience of the body in the present moment. And then we allow the awareness to flow down into the toes. And here again is an area where we often hold tension. If the toes are flexed in any way, just allow them to soften and rest. And then from here you can guide the awareness down into your toenails. And once again, we'll just spend a little time patiently observing the toenails. Just noticing, are there any sensations? What are the sensations in the toenails we observe? Pulsation, vibration, energy, whatever's there. We just observe, we're letting go. And then from our toes, we're going to move once again, move the awareness up to the top of the head and to the scalp. And this time, at your own pace, you can start to guide your awareness back down through your body. So you can just do that part by part, trying to follow the same path that we did together so that no part of the body is left out or forgotten. And you find that just moving awareness through, you can quite quickly, quite easily become aware of the sensations in each part and notice and release the tension as you move through. Take notice of the parts of the body where tension has returned since you released it on the first pass through. Maybe your jaws have tightened again, or maybe your shoulders are shrugged again. Maybe the belly is tightened, or the hands have clenched again. When we notice these parts of the body where tension returns, these are areas that we call habit tension. There's habit energy. We have habit tension in the body in these different places. And this habit tension arises as a result of stress in daily life, difficult emotions, things that upset us or make us worried or stress us out. When we have these types of emotional experiences, we respond by tensing up the body in many different places. And we do it as a defense mechanism, as a way of protecting ourselves, we think. But what happens is, after the thoughts of fear or anger or worry or whatever they were, after those thoughts fade away, the tension remains. And on the unconscious level of the mind, at the unconscious level of the mind, this tension replays those difficult emotions that caused it. So the tightness in the belly replays maybe the fear or the anxiety. The tightness in the shoulders replays maybe those feelings of worry or of anger. Tightness in the fists, again, anger. So by noticing these places and releasing the tension over and over, first off, we identify them as places where we habitually hold this energy, but we can begin to release it systematically and repeatedly. And in so doing, we begin to train the mind and body to let go. And this is what we call, in the Pali language, samatha, and that means calm abiding. The experience of calm abiding in the body. And it feels good, it feels safe. There's a refuge in the body. And now we're going to move our awareness up to the base of the nose. There's a little patch of skin there beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. So we'll bring our awareness there. And we'll expand the awareness a little further to include the rings of the nostrils. And then we'll expand that awareness a little further to go inside the nostrils into the nasal passages. And so now with awareness in this triangular area of the nose, what we want to do is just focus on the movement of the breath. So as you breathe in, you just notice that you're breathing in. And as you breathe out, you just notice that you're breathing out. Breathing in, you know you're breathing in. Breathing out, you know you're breathing out. So there's this awareness of respiration. And as we breathe, we try to stay with the breath for its full duration. So staying with the breath as it starts coming in, staying with it as it begins to slow and taper off, and then it pauses and reverses direction. And then we stay with the out breath, again, as it begins and tapers off, it slows and pauses and becomes the next in-breath. So there is this continual flow of the breath that we can observe, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in and knowing it, breathing out and knowing it. And as we observe the movement of the breath and its full duration, open up your awareness to the feeling of touch anywhere in that triangular area of the nose. And as the breath goes in, you'll notice that somewhere in that triangular area there is a feeling of touch as the breath makes contact with the skin. So you're aware of this feeling of touch, focusing on it, focusing on the movement of the breath. And then as you observe the touch, you might notice some more subtle sensations within it. Breathing in, the air is a little cooler than it is when you're breathing out. And it feels a little warmer. And breathing in, the air feels a little drier than it does when you're breathing out, where it feels a little more moist. So you're observing these very subtle sensations within the breath. You might notice how sometimes the breath is long, sometimes it's short, sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's shallow. So you're really attentive, interested, focused, watching the breath. And from time to time, you might notice that your awareness moves away from the breath. Sometimes it'll go to follow a sound. You hear a sound outside or in the room, and awareness goes to that sound. But in the moment you become aware of that distraction arising, simply guide the awareness back to the triangular area of the nose and to the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations of the breath. That's all you have to do. You don't have to push out the distraction or react to it in any way. It's just noticing that awareness has moved, and so we'll very gently, very compassionately guide it back to the nose. And just reestablish awareness for one more breath. That's all we need to do. And then sometimes you could be observing the breath and maybe there's a strong sensation in the body. You get an itch somewhere or a tickle or some other strong sensation, and the mind again wanders away from the breath and goes to the sensation. In the moment that you notice this, the practice is simply to guide the awareness back to the breath, back to the triangular area of the nose. So what we know is that distractions are bound to happen. Distractions come and go. All we need to do is to be aware and return our awareness to the breath. And we can do this over and over, as often as we need to. And sometimes we'll notice that the mind has just kind of wandered away on its own. Maybe it's remembering something or planning. Maybe there's images. Again, at some point, you notice that you're distracted from the breath. And in that moment, it's a wonderful moment in the practice. That's the moment you guide the awareness back to the triangular area of the nose. And each time you do that, you begin to strengthen your ability to remain focused. Over time, distractions will begin to diminish, they'll decrease. You'll find that you're able to notice distractions sooner and to return to the awareness of the breath more easily and more quickly. So this is our practice, just letting go of distractions, remaining focused on the breath. So what we'll do now is just spend a few minutes in silent meditation together, all of us observing the breath, all of us aware of distractions as they arise, returning awareness to the breath over and over as often as needed. And in a few minutes I'll sound the bell, and that will end this meditation practice. Take your time. Open your eyes when you're ready. Start to move around a little bit. Be compassionate and gentle with yourself. Feel free to stand or stretch. And of course there's tea in the kitchen. If anybody wants any tea, help yourself. And then we'll start on the teaching for tonight. But great job, everybody. Real quiet. Nice long meditation. Wonderful. You, two new people. You seem to do okay. You're still here.
Doing us out. I think we can share,
Thanks.
a couple people can share.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm one short because I printed 12, but I can print one more before folks leave tonight. So, yeah, thank you, Cheryl.
Oh, crack.
I heard it way over here.
You feeling it?
My leg.
I crawled around in my hole, washed my floor today.
I got some
kinks today. I could feel the muscles I worked today that I hadn't done in a while, crawling around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Till I get home. I listen.
Did you get
Yeah, not some person chained to.
Some woman
She's good.
crying in the closet.
Yeah, she's doing good. She's doing good. I've noticed though that as the groups have gotten larger, she gets a little nervous and she kind of wants to sit only on my lap, and she had just a little bit of an accident on my lap a couple times ago, so I figure, well, just let her relax upstairs where she feels safe. But, all right, so tonight's topic, Kamma and Vipaka Kamma. The meaning of those words are action and the fruit of action. So what we're talking about here is, it may be more familiar to you in the term karma, K-A-R-M-A, and probably most of you have heard that word, have some idea what it means, so sometimes there's some confusion about what karma is, what it means, and why does it matter. So there's kind of a deep spiritual tradition that goes back, starting with the Hindu religion in India, and then also moving into the Buddhist practices. And so I like to kind of cover the historical context of it, but then bring it back to a real practical, sort of non-religious, secular way of how do we work with karma or kamma as we learn about it. How do we use it in our own lives for practical purposes? And those practical purposes would be, we're all here because we would like to overcome suffering in our own lives. The degree of suffering that we experience, we would like to decrease that. We would like to increase our happiness. And so really every one of our talks and every time we get together is focused ultimately at that goal. So sometimes our road gets a little windy as we head in that direction, but that is the direction, is freedom and peace and happiness, and it is very possible. So learning some things about this word, karma, can be very helpful to us on the path, and I think it's kind of inspirational. So one thing I will say though is that there are just volumes of text from the different suttas talking about what karma is, from different commentators and scholars, and a lot of this stuff is just amazing and wonderful. So there's no way I could really, this alone was starting to feel like a college term paper. So there's really no way I could get everything in here, but I wanted to just kind of give you the overview and then, okay, practical application. What do you do with it that matters? What do you do with it that's actually going to help you when you walk out of here tonight? So that's what we'll end up with. But so I'll read a little bit out of the handout. You can follow along if you want, otherwise just listen. So the historical context, the Hindu understanding of karma is based on the idea that everything that happens to a person is a result of some past deed, oftentimes in a past life or even multiple past lives. So there's this commonly held belief in Hinduism that there is reincarnation or rebirth, and that human beings are born again and again and again, not necessarily always as humans, sometimes in the animal realms or sometimes in the heavenly realms, but that there is this concept of rebirth. And so with this idea of rebirth comes this concept of karma, where it is, in the Hindu context, why is it that I might be born with, a birth defect? Why is it that I might be born with a low intellectual capacity? Why is it that I might be born into a very, very poor family? And so a lot of times karma is used as the explanation for this. It's just said, well, probably at some point in some past life you did something or lived in a way that kind of led to this. So that's a belief. And I'm not here to say that that's true or not true or valid or not valid. That's for others to decide. But the Hindu caste system is a product of this concept. So in the caste system, if you're familiar with it at all, you have on the one level, you have the Brahmins, who are the highest caste members in Hindu society and in Indian society. And incidentally, the caste system has been outlawed in India because of the injustice of it, but it still persists to this day. It's very much a regular part of Indian culture. But so you have the high, the noble birth people. Sometimes they refer to them in the suttas as twice born people, meaning that they've had at least one life where they've done something good, and now they're at the higher level of the caste system. And then you get all the way down to the untouchables, as they're known, and they're kind of the lowest level. So these might be people that have disabilities, or are very poor, or very ill, or have different kinds of problems. So one's place in that hierarchy is the result then of past karma. This is, again, and I'm teaching what is true in the Hindu belief system, not necessarily in what we believe here. But it's the result of this past karma. And karma is considered, it's a process set into motion kind of by the gods. And it's like, it's no different from the laws of gravity or thermodynamics. It's like one of the laws of physics. And so it just, everything that happens falls within the laws of physics and can't deviate from it. So that's kind of a real quick overview of it from the Hindu perspective. Excuse me. And most people, most Westerners certainly, probably understand this term karma from the Hindu perspective. So that's probably what a lot of you think about karma right now. And the concept is not too dissimilar from kind of the Western Judeo-Christian types of thoughts that we might have about sin and maybe punishment and damnation and redemption. These two are not all that different from one another, and so a lot of people who are Westerners who've grown up in the Judeo-Christian tradition they'll kind of fall into that understanding of karma relatively easily, because it sort of makes sense based on what we've grown up with. So the Buddhist ideas are quite different, however, and for this reason I choose to use the word in its Pali form. So instead of karma, I use the word kamma. And just that small variation serves as a reminder that we need to rethink our understanding of the word, its meaning, and its significance in our practice. So I'll try and use the word kamma. And I heard a teacher, an Australian, giving a speech on kamma, and when she said karma and she said kamma, it sounded the same either way. So I thought that was pretty cool because of her Australian accent. That's one of the neat things about that. But So some understandings about Kamma. Now these predate Buddhist teachings. There were three sort of common schools of thought: that all present experience is the direct result of previous actions. So this Hindu karma idea, deterministic, no room for free will. The second school of thought was all that we experience is the result of the God's creations and actions. So that led to a lot of rites and rituals. We'd be performing all sorts of purifications, prostrations, giving gifts, giving offerings, things like this. And then the third was that there's no rhyme or reason for anything happening. Everything's just random, and it happens, and whatever happens, it's just kind of a roll of the dice. So those were sort of the three main schools. Well, when the Buddha came along, and I'm talking about the historical Buddha, who was a human being, a simple, well, not a simple man, a complicated man, but a man, just a man named Siddhartha Gautama, and he was this individual that we now know as the Buddha. And the Buddha is a title. It means one who is awake, or an awakened one. So when he came into teaching, he rejected all of these different concepts from kind of the Hindu sets of teaching. And he said that while action is important, intention is what really matters. And so this is a natural law of the universe. There is no entity outside of ourselves running things, but we have free will. And that our intention is what matters, because our intention fuels our action. So one of the things he says, it is intention or volition that I call Kamma. For having willed, one performs an action through body, speech, and mind. Right? So everything we do is due to us deciding, I'm going to do it. If you get up and walk to the kitchen and get a cup of tea, you have decided that you're going to go do that. If you decide to come and sit back down, you've decided you're going to do that. There's always an intention before there is an action. So it's this intention or volition is what he referred to as Kamma. And again, for having willed, one performs an action through body, speech, and mind. And I've shared a few times that it's considered in the teaching that there are three kinds of action. There is physical action, things that we do. There is vocal action, things that we say. And then there's mental action, the things that we think about. So there's three kinds of action. So to simplify it, Kamma means action motivated by intention. And Vipaka Kamma means the fruit of the action. So we've got these two things. We've got action motivated by our intentions, and then we've got the fruit of the action. One of the things that the Buddha said about Kamma is that it is imponderable. He said, essentially, that the best way to approach Kamma is to get a general idea of what it is and how it works, and then to kind of let go of it, because it is absolutely impossible. He said it will drive a person to madness to try and really follow Kamma all the way back and figure out all these causes and effect. And he said it'll drive you to madness. Don't try and do it. It is imponderable. There were just a few things that he said were imponderable. So in some of this, we get this idea of rebirth and past lives. But the Buddha always taught his disciples not to waste their time and energy in metaphysical speculation. And whenever he was asked a metaphysical question, he remained silent. Instead, he directed his disciples towards practical efforts. Questioned one day about the infinity of the world, the Buddha said, whether the world is finite or infinite, limited or unlimited, the problem of your liberation remains the same. So he said, really, we could talk about this stuff forever, but really, what does that do to help you find liberation? What does that do to help you find freedom from suffering? What does it do to help you find peace? And so that's the real question. So he said, that's the goal. I mean, really, who cares if the world is going to last forever or if it isn't? Or if space is endless or it isn't? If you're suffering, that's the thing we want to work on. We want to work on ending suffering in your lifetime. So we'll focus on things rather than a lot of that metaphysical conjecture and speculation. We'll focus on practical application instead. You might be familiar with the word pundit. Like on political shows, they have pundits that will, support one side or another in a political argument and give their opinion. It comes from the Sanskrit pandit, and it was kind of common in the time of the Buddha for these different people to get together who considered themselves experts in these different traditions, and they would kind of take a side and they would, debate these things. And that's actually where that word comes from. It comes from that time in India about 2,500 years ago. So it's kind of an interesting thing that we've been doing that as human beings for quite some time. So what is also said is that we go through round after round of rebirth. But setting aside any thought of past lives or reincarnation, because I don't want to, again, that's metaphysical speculation. Doesn't do me any good to know that. There's a very practical application of the concept of rebirth when taken on the level of moment by moment volition and action. So each and every day we are literally creating our next birth, as the next moment of mind is the child of this moment of mind. I remember that's one of the things my teacher said. He said, the next mind is a child of this mind. So whatever you're doing with this mind, that's going to be the rebirth in the next moment. So it's not a reincarnation thing. It's like what you're doing right now is going to lead to an experience in the next moment or in the next week or in the next day. And so that's really the concept of rebirth as we look at it here. That everything is in the process of rebirth. Every moment thoughts are dying away. Every moment ideas are changing. There's death and rebirth literally going on every moment. And much of that is going on within the conscious mind. So the part of this is where we start to get into what to me is really exciting and is really liberating. So the chance to begin again. In that context, Kamma means freedom. It means that you have the freedom to navigate your own path. So it isn't fatalistic. It isn't predetermined, but you have the ability to navigate your own path. You have the ability to create a favorable rebirth in the next moment by virtue of the actions that you take now. So again, Kamma is action motivated by intention. So letting go of the past and not thinking about the future, we arrive here in the present moment. And the present moment is truly the only moment we can be alive. When viewing Kamma from this vantage point, we have a real understanding that this moment of consciousness sets the stage for the next moment of consciousness. And this is the truth of Kamma manifesting itself in each and every moment. So it's a really cool thing. Just a simple example, you could maybe wake up in kind of a grumpy mood and be grumpy, and at some point in time, it's kind of like in meditation where we realize we're distracted and we say, oh, there's a distraction. I'm going to bring my mind back to the breath. I'm going to become aware of the breathing and focus on that. And in that moment, you've begun again. Every breath is a new breath. Every breath is a moment to return to focusing on what it is you want to focus on. And so literally every minute of every day, because of the truth of Kamma manifesting itself, we can change the course of events. We can be grumpy right now, but we can become aware of that, and then through volition or through intention, we can decide to change that. We can be having cross relations with somebody in our lives, disagreements, something like this that's causing friction or causing pain in a relationship. If we become aware of that and we truly decide with intention and volition that we want to change that, then we can go to this person and we can change that. Or at least we can do our part to change that. So everything is available to us. And to me, this is the really exciting part about Kamma. It is you are free and you have the ability to change your life for the better. All you need to know is to know about this. So it's a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. So to read from this just a little further, our actions, when they're motivated by unwholesome intention, will produce negative outcomes for us and for those around us. Okay, so in other words, action motivated by unwholesome intention leads to suffering. Conversely, when our actions, when motivated by a wholesome intention, will produce positive outcomes for us and for those around us. Action motivated by wholesome intention leads to happiness. So those are two really simple rules, very basic to the teaching of Kamma, but they're absolutely true. So wholesome or unwholesome intention leads to suffering. Now, in the future, for ourselves, for those who come into contact with us in the context of that unwholesome intention, unwholesome action. And again, when our actions are motivated by a wholesome intention, it will produce happiness, it will produce peace, it will produce freedom, positive outcomes. So rather than thinking about Kamma in the context of past lives, think about it in the context of the very present moment. Kamma really represents freedom because we can change the next moment of life entirely by tending to this moment mindfully. So that's probably the thing that we have to keep in mind, is that we need to remember to be mindful. Again, going back to the experience of meditating and becoming aware of a distraction, you know, there are a lot of times for a few seconds or a few minutes, you don't notice the distraction. You know, you're just sort of in it, your mind's wandering. That happens a lot. And then at some point in time, it'll occur to you and you just go, oh, and you kind of drop it and you go back to the breath. Well, Kamma, we can do that the same way in every moment. We can change the next moment by tending to this moment mindfully. So trying to have that mindfulness, that general sense of mindfulness, and then approaching things with that gentleness and that compassion and that self-kindness that is so important. We don't want to ever come at ourselves and say, oh, you jerk, you're a bad person, you don't deserve love, you don't deserve happiness, or you don't deserve good things. We never want to come at ourselves like that. We never want to come at others like that. We want to come at ourselves with compassion and with love and with self-forgiveness at all times. But then that helps us to be mindful in the moment. If every time you were mindful, you were going to just sort of beat yourself up, it's no good. But mindfulness, it should be freedom. It's like when I become aware of things in my body, then there's peace. When I become aware of things in my mind, then there's quiet. So it is this quality of bringing this compassionate, loving mindfulness to ourselves that helps us to transform into happiness. So sometimes it's said, don't think about the past other than to learn from it. Start here, in this moment. What is skillful? What is unskillful? This moment of consciousness sets the stage for the next moment of consciousness. What can you do with that knowledge? So that really becomes a powerful thing. It becomes a really powerful question. Knowing that, what can you do with it? That right now I can make a decision. I can choose how it is I'm going to relate to the world. I share that quote a lot, or that statement a lot. It's not what's happening that's important, it's your relationship to what's happening that's important. And that's so true. So this is also a part of the teaching on Kamma. This is a middle of page 3. It says unwholesome and wholesome, akusala and kusala. Akusala means unwholesome, kusala means wholesome. Now, this is a copy of the suttas. So it's about 2,500 years old, but I just want to read it to you, at least part of it. So this one, usually what I do when I go through these suttas is I like to try and make them all gender neutral. So I generally work on that. I think in this one I was not able to necessarily do that completely, but that's always one of my goals as I do this. So here it is. When, friends, a noble disciple understands the unwholesome and the root of the unwholesome, the wholesome and the root of the wholesome, in that way he is one of right view, one whose view is straight, one who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma and has arrived at this true Dhamma. So he understands the truth. He sees it clearly. And what is the unwholesome? Killing living beings is the unwholesome. Taking what is not given is the unwholesome. Misconduct in sensual pleasures is the unwholesome. False speech is the unwholesome. Divisive speech is the unwholesome. Harsh speech is the unwholesome. Frivolous chatter is the unwholesome. Covetousness is the unwholesome. Ill will is the unwholesome. Wrong view is the unwholesome. This is called the unwholesome. And what is the root of the unwholesome? Greed is a root of the unwholesome. This is called the root of the unwholesome. And what is the unwholesome? Abstention, and what is the wholesome? Abstention from frivolous chatter is the wholesome. Uncovetousness is the wholesome. Non-ill will is the wholesome. Right view is the wholesome. This is called the wholesome. And what is the root of the wholesome? Non-greed is a root of the wholesome. Non-hate is a root of the wholesome. Non-delusion is a root of the wholesome. This is called the root of the wholesome. When we start out our time together on our Tuesdays and our Sundays for our practice group, I talk about mental purification and cultivating wholesome intentions, and that's really what we're doing with that simple practice in the very beginning. We are purifying that which is unwholesome. We're cultivating that which is wholesome. So we're actually doing this every week as part of our practice. It's very intentional. And so some of you don't know that that's really kind of what's behind this, but there's really there's kind of a reason for everything we do. There's a scholar, Peter Harvey. He comments on the sutta that I just read you. He said, here, the roots of wholesome action, literally non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion, are not just the absence of greed, hatred, and delusion, but states which oppose them. So it's anti-greed, generosity and renunciation, anti-hatred, loving kindness and compassion, and anti-delusion, which is wisdom. In this passage, the unwholesome is explained as consisting of actions of body and speech that are widely recognized as harmful to others, plus mental states that are likely to later lead to such harmful actions. So he's just talking about how Kamma, starts to have this amazing impact, and that we look at it, unwholesome intentions lead to unwholesome Kamma, which is just going to lead to suffering for you, for others, now and in the future. It's just almost like one of the laws of physics. It's like gravity. If you drop a ball from a building, it's going to fall to the ground. If you act in a way that is based in an unwholesome intention or an unwholesome volition, it's going to result in suffering. If you act in a way based in positive intention, positive volition, wholesome volition, it's going to result in happiness, peace, contentment, compassion, those things that we try to cultivate. And then the last quote that I want to share is from Jon Kabat-Zinn. If you've ever read the book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, it's a great book. It's easy to read because each chapter is very short. They're just like, it's just like a couple of pages for each chapter, and then he goes on to a different topic. There's a lot of nice quotes in here from different sources. It's a really easy to read book. They usually carry this at Barnes and Noble, and it's like $5. It's in that, the real cheap area. So it's I recommend it. But Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's recognized as kind of the father of mindfulness-based stress reduction practices and mindfulness-based pain reduction practices. So he's been around for quite some time. And I think this book was written in either the late 60s or the early 70s. So it's been quite some time. And I can't read that, so. Something like that. Something like that. See, the stuff I read from is big. I blow it up.
You gotta buy him a pair of readers.
No, I have them. They're all over the house. I don't have any right here. But yeah, no, I've got them. I probably don't have to walk much more than 8 feet in any direction, and I will bump into a pair. Believe me. So, but here's what Jon Kabat-Zinn talks about, and I also love him because just a very straightforward way of looking at things, and just filled with compassion. Everything he does. So he says he's going to use the word karma. He says karma is often wrongly confused with the notion of a fixed destiny. It's more like an accumulation of tendencies that can lock us into particular behavior patterns, which themselves result in further accumulation of tendencies of a similar nature. But it's not necessary to be a prisoner of old karma. Here's how mindfulness changes karma. When you sit, you are not allowing your impulses to translate into action. For the time being, at least, you're just watching them, looking at them. You quickly see that all impulses in the mind arise and pass away, that they have a life of their own, that they are not you, but just thinking, and that you do not have to be ruled by them. Not feeding or reacting to impulses, you come to understand their nature as thoughts directly. This process actually burns up destructive impulses in the fires of concentration and equanimity and non-doing. At the same time, the creative insights and creative impulses are no longer squeezed out so much by the more turbulent destructive ones. They are nourished as they are perceived and held in awareness. So I really like the way that he looks at this too. And it's kind of beautiful too. So just to summarize, we're almost at the end of our time, but to summarize, so a lot of us have this misunderstanding of what karma is. We think it's something very complicated, very esoteric, and the Buddha agrees. He says it's an imponderable, don't try to think about it because you'll go crazy. Just work with the basics. Wholesome intention produces good karma. Unwholesome intention produces bad karma. Anytime you produce good karma, good things, you will feel good. You will be happy. Good things will happen. Every time you produce unwholesome karma, you're going to feel bad. You're going to suffer. And those around will too. The beauty is the next moment is the moment you get to choose. And then the next moment is the moment you get to choose. So it's always brand new. It's never like a lost cause. It's never, oh, I had my chance last week and I didn't do it, so now I guess it's not going to happen. But it's just, with this breath, what is my intention? And with this breath, what is my intention? Every breath, you can look at every mind moment as a new opportunity to change your life. And it really does work. If you look at it with just that simple mindset, you find that this is one of the most liberating teachings in all of the Dhamma, and it's considered to be really central to the Buddhist teaching. So, again, I mentioned a lot of things, Buddhism and Hinduism and Judeo-Christian Christian thought and all these kinds of things. What this all comes down to is true. It's kind of like gravity, You drop a ball from the top of a building, it's going to fall to the ground. Well, is that Christianity, or is that Hinduism, or is that Buddhism, or what is that? Is that Zoroastrianism, or No, it's just one of the laws of physics. And you can look at this as the same way. It's a secular way of thinking, but it's absolutely true, and it liberates you. It liberates you immediately. So
you could say it's a natural law.
it's a natural law. Yep, you can say it as a natural law. And yeah, that term is actually used quite a bit in the text talking about it. Natural law. So now we're at the end of our time. So we're going to do the 4 Brahma-viharas, and I'm going to run upstairs and get Lucy, and I'm going to print one more handout. It was one person that didn't get one, right? Yeah. So I'll print one more handout when I go get Lucy. But now we'll do our 4 Brahma-viharas together. So I hope you found this interesting and helpful, and also uplifting. I mean, it's not this is great. This is great. Walk out of here. The next moment is yours. It's yours to decide. It's yours to decide. And if you forget, or if you maybe have unwholesome intention, well, then the next moment, start again. Start again. So, yeah, just begin again. Begin again. So, we will cultivate now the highest states of human consciousness, which are compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And equanimity is peace and balance, and it is a place in which there's no craving or clinging. You feel free, you feel content. So we cultivate these we begin by saying, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy, having this appreciative joy, joyful and happy. And may all beings be equanimous and free and peaceful and at ease. And then to all of you who have chosen to spend this hour and a half here together, listening and learning and meditating together, I appreciate you so much, and I realize how much this time matters. I appreciate it. I appreciate you, and my wish is that you will all be truly, truly happy. All right, everybody. Namaskar. Thank you for coming. If any of you have not signed up for the newsletter and you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet under the bulletin board out there. And you get the monthly newsletter. And then also, if anyone is able to donate anything in the box out there, it is always appreciated. So I will get